Hello, Adolfo from Portainer here, and I'm going to present our latest Community Edition 2.9.1 of Portainer. It has a strong focus on Kubernetes support. And there's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to jump straight into the demonstration of these amazing new features. Starting with two new buttons that you see here when you're accessing a Kubernetes cluster within Portainer, the Kubectl shell and Kubeconfig buttons. Well, the Kubectl shell is a shell where you can run Kubectl and Helm straight within Portainer without having to open an external access on this Kubernetes cluster. So for instance, Kubectl net all namespaces. There you go. You can also run Helm within this shell. A huge time saver, and also, in my opinion, a more secure way to access your cluster. So, because again, you don't need to open an external tool or program or application to access your cluster when you need to run Kubectl or Helm on it. Okay, Kubeconfig. What does the Kubeconfig button do? It allows Portainer to run as a proxy for external tools that need to access a Kubernetes cluster via the Kubeconfig file. And not only that, you can also set an expiry time for this Kubeconfig file. Today we support 1 day, a week, a month, a year, or no expiry at all. Okay, let's go to our next feature, which is what we're calling a lightweight GitOps. What is that? So if you go and try to deploy an application via the Create Manifest button, you see we allow integrating Portainer with a Git repository that now you can monitor for changes via a polling that you can determine here in terms of fetch interval, the time interval that you want Portainer to poll this Git repository to check for changes on a given file or set of files that you have here that you can add to this deployment. And you can use push, which is via a webhook. So if you have, like, for instance, a CI/CD tool where you run a process and at the end you need to push a change, you can do it straight into Portainer that will redeploy the file in this Git repository once it receives the push from an external tool. Next feature, Helm charts. Now we support Helm charts. And although it's a first version support of Helm charts, you can already do some interesting things like open the values YAML file and add some changes or customizations that you need to this given Helm chart that you're going to deploy. Next feature, custom templates. So let's say you want to set up a template for repeatability. So you don't need to always send a YAML file or pull that from or even push that from a Git repository. You want to make sure that you have these templates within Portainer. So if you set up an environment for a given set of users that you want them to always use this given template, you can now set them within Portainer. And the way to use these templates is that when you deploy an application and you select Create from Manifest, you'll see that you have the custom template button here that you can use to deploy this template within your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, private registries. So now we support private registries. Let me create a namespace here. I'm going to call this namespace test. I'm not going to do any resource assignment. It's just for the purpose of showing how private registries work. And I'm going to select my private registry onto this namespace. So when the user uses this namespace, so for instance, I'm going now to open the application option and add application with form, select test. I can now have access to this private registry right within the application form. Also a huge time saver. And now you can see within this registry, I can access all the images that I have in my private registry. Okay, Portainer HTTPS support, another interesting feature. So now in settings, you can determine that you will force access to Portainer via HTTPS only. And if you have your own certificate, you can load these certificates into Portainer. This will ensure that you always have a secure access. And not only that, this feature is the one that will allow you to use Portainer as a proxy to other external tools. And also you will see that it will enable is the feature that will enable the Kubeconfig file. So if you don't activate this feature, you will not have access to the Kubeconfig file within Portainer. It will not act as a proxy for you for other tools. Yes, and finally, the last feature I want to show that we've added to our interface is the dark theme. Yes, we have dark theme and high contrast. So if you select the dark theme mode, you'll see changes to the interface, or the high contrast theme, which is also a useful theme for people who need to use high contrast on their environment. Okay then, so these are the new features, some of the new features that we have with this new version of Portainer. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.